Today we're covering everything power related in Foundry, from low voltage and high voltage power to setting up your first steam turbine setup and using solar panels. So if you do find this breakdown useful and want to see more of these videos for Foundry, then do make sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe for more. And if you are looking for something in particular, make sure to use the timestamps below. Starting off, Foundry has two types of power. We have low voltage, which are generated from the biomass burners and the burner generator. Now, these generators produce power to the foundations that they are placed on, and providing all your factory foundations are connected to each other via a single foundation, any factory buildables will run if you're producing enough power for them. Now, the biomass generator only burns biomass, hence the name. These can produce a max output of 600 kilowatts. That's the equivalent to 6 smelters in this game. Now, if a factory is consuming more power than you are producing, the factories don't shut down. Instead, their production will just slow down. You can see here that we have two biomass generators running this grid, which is consuming up to 1.4 megawatts with a max output of 1.2 megawatts from our biomass burners. Now, the factory is running, but the green bar here signifies the efficiency. Here, the lower the power consumption, the more full the line is. This is a live feedback bar showing us whether our fuel generators are providing the factory with the power it needs. So where possible, you should always try to ensure that this line is filled green. There's also no harm in providing more burners than necessary, because they will only consume resources based on how much they need, and they'll scale as your factory needs more power. This grid view also shows the power consumers on this particular grid, which is important to note for later. Next, we have the burner generators. Now, these can be automated by connecting them to a fuel source, whether that's biomass from a greenhouse, ignium from a miner, or even portable fuel. On the user info here, it does also state that there may be a residual output. So if you're using these with a resource like ignium fuel rods, you'll need to output the fuel rod casing to stop the system from seizing up when it reaches a full buffer output. Now, unfortunately, with biomass generators producing a max of 600 kilowatts and the automated burner generating a max of 1.8 megawatts per burner, you'll find yourself needing to build a lot of these for late game power. This is where the high voltage power production comes in with steam generators. These produce 3.6 megawatts of power per generator. To set them up, you'll need to feed a boiler with water via an intake pipe, and do make sure that the green arrow on the intake pipe is facing the pipe that's transporting the water to your boiler. You can actually check if water's going through by looking at the windows in your pipes. You'll also need to feed your boiler with fuel, similarly to the burn generator. So depending on the fuel, you may need to add an output as well. From here, your steam output, which is located the opposite side of the boiler panel, should be sent to the steam turbine. Finally, the turbine needs to be connected via a wire to a pole, and at this point you can transfer the power to buildables that require a wired connection, which are some of the bigger ones that you get later in the game, or you can use them in your factory, providing you're using transformers. These transformers step down the high voltage power to low voltage, making them usable. The small transformer can transmit up to 5 megawatts of high voltage power to a low voltage grid, and the large transformers can transmit up to 25 megawatts. This is also per transformer, so if you're needing more power on a particular grid, you can connect to the grid with more transformers from the same power line. Also, there isn't a way to step up power to high voltage from your burners and biomass burners, if you were wondering. Now, for an efficient steam turbine setup, note that the intake pipe that we have can provide 30,000 litres of water per minute, and each boiler consumes 20 litres of water per second. So with a little bit of maths, we can find that a boiler uses 1,200 litres of water per minute, meaning a single intake pipe can provide 25 boilers with water, and each boiler can provide steam for a single turbine. And better yet, the boilers can be daisy chained together without having to need pipes or having to use pipes. Also, as the inserters require power to run and feed the boilers, do make sure that you have power connected to the generator boiler setup, otherwise they won't run. Also, the turbines won't turn unless there's a power drain. So if you have no factory connected, they're not going to run. Alternatively, providing you have a transformer turning the high voltage power to low voltage power on the same grid as the steam turbines, you can use that to power your factory once you've kick-started it. Now, along with steam turbines, we have two other power sources available for high voltage power. We have small and large solar panels. These are set up similarly to the steam generator. Connect them to a power pole followed by a transformer in order to step down the power to be used. These are great as a setup and forget system, though you will need to connect them to batteries if you want them to supply power to your factory during the night. This means that you'll have to have more solar panels than needed to run the factory in order to store power for the night. Now, the small panels produce 300 kilowatts of power and have a smaller footprint, with about 3 small solar panels fitting in the same footprint as a large solar panel, which produces a max of 650 kilowatts of power. Now, some would think it's a no-brainer to just build small panels, given that you can squeeze an extra 250 kilowatts of power when you compare the 3 small panels to 1 large panel. But you also have to consider the angle of the sun. Both panels only run with the sun between 15 degrees and 165 degrees. However, the small panels only run at 100% production if the sun is directly above them. Now, we can see this in the grid stats here. Notice the bar that dictates their efficiency is about 30% full. Now, comparing their max output, knowing that it's 300 kilowatts, we can see that they're only generating 102 kilowatts here. So we know that they're not running at full capacity. However, jumping over to the large panels, they're running at 100% production within their angle ranges, making them, in my opinion, much more efficient despite the footprint, especially considering they run at a constant 100%, which means you don't need to compensate by building extra panels to sustain the lower power levels during the morning and the evening. And now that we've understood the power production, the last thing that I want to cover is the power grid itself. But before we do that, if you are enjoying my content, why not join me over on twitch.tv/Totalxclipse. We stream Foundry on there, as well as Satisfactory and some other cool games. I'd love to have you there. Now, clicking on the grid stats on either a power generator or transformer, you can see the state of your network. It may be confusing at first, but I assure you it's simple once you know how. The top section is all the high voltage power production items connected to this grid. Beneath these, you'll have the batteries that are directly connected to the high voltage grid, and you can notice here how the solar panels take priority over the steam turbines when generating power for the grid. This is great as it means fuel won't be consumed unless necessary. Now, all the power generated here will be the prioritized power to be consumed by the factories that are connected via transformers. Now, each transformer section beneath this represents a separate grid. On the first grid, you can see we have 2 transformers with a max capacity of 30 megawatts. Beneath this are also all of the power consumers, of which for this grid there are none, as this is an empty grid. On the far right hand side though, we have a transformer with a capacity of 5 megawatts, but only consuming 7 kilowatts of power. Beneath you can actually see the consumers, so it's the inserters, and interestingly we can see this is the grid with 4 burner generators, and these are not running as the high voltage power producers are the ones that are prioritized when producing power. Hopefully this does make power that little bit more clearer to understand before we receive more updates with no doubt more power options in the future. But again, guys, if you did enjoy the video, please do hit the thumbs up. It would mean the world to me. And also subscribe if you do enjoy our content, and let me know what you'd like to see us cover in the next Foundry guide in the comments below. If you're wondering what to watch next, why not check out my Let's Play series, which we've just started with the first 2 episodes already out. I'll put a link to one of them now. But until next time, special thanks does go to all of our amazing supporters on Patreon, most notably our Solarclipse patron, Firefless, as well as our Lunas, the Calamity, Ben and Star, and our Blood Moon of the day, which today is Jenny. Until next time, as always, ciao for now.